What it is, my 10 piece and grease here, bringing you another WDIF, or Where Do I Find? And today we're talking mutagen masses, Fieldrons, and Detonite Injectors. Before we delve headlong into it, stomp that like button like Rhino stomping Grenier if you find this vid helpful, and sub for my future vids, and I greatly appreciate it, guys. So with all that nonsense and BS out of the way, let's get to it. So there are three options to acquire these resources. The first option would be for Detonite Injectors, for example, to just hop into a random Grenier mission and hope one drops, or Fieldron, hop into a Corpus mission and hope you get one that drops, or finally jump into an infested mission and hope that a mutagen mass drops. However, they drop in very, 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 did I mention very small amounts, so it's not something you're going to be racking up just an absolute ton of on those types of missions. For those reasons, I don't recommend this method. The second way to acquire these resources is actually going to be in your dojo with your clan. However, there are a couple of problems with this. The first is that your clan must have already researched the blueprints for these resources in order for you to actually duplicate or replicate those blueprints. Obviously, if they haven't done the research yet or completed the research yet, then you're not going to have access to them. The second thing to keep in mind is that these are one-time use only blueprints, similar to Forma, for example. So I'll give you a hypothetical example here in the biology lab or bio lab for mutagen mass. In order for me to get a blueprint to build mutagen mass in my foundry, I would just click on the corresponding button for replicate, and that would give me one blueprint that cost 15,000 credits. If I needed, say for example, 5 mutagen masses to complete a particular project in my foundry, I would have to buy 5 or duplicate or replicate 5 of these mutagen mass blueprints at 15,000 credits each, for a total of 75,000 credits, and that's just for 5. No more than 5. I mean, you can buy more than 5, obviously, but if you needed 5 to complete a project in your foundry, then it's going to cost you 15,000 credits each. Times 5 is 75,000 credits. So here we are in the energy lab, and for the Fieldron, again, same thing. To replicate or duplicate one blueprint is going to cost you 15,000 credits. And lastly, in the chemical lab or chem lab, you're going to find the Detonite Injector blueprint. And for the third and final time, the Detonite Injector blueprint is going to cost you 15,000 credits to replicate or duplicate. And that amount is just for one single use blueprint. I think you probably can gather from my remarks that I don't recommend this method, and you're right, I don't. It can get insanely expensive insanely quickly, because ultimately, if we stay with the same example of 5 blueprints for one of these items, it's costing you 15,000 credits per blueprint to duplicate it, plus it costs you an additional 15,000 credits to actually build each one. So with Detonite Injectors, for example, it's going to cost 15,000 credits to build one and 12 hours to complete it, just for one. So let's do the math here. We'll stay with the same example of 5. I needed 5 Detonite Injectors to complete some sort of project in my foundry. It cost me 15,000 credits each to replicate that blueprint in my dojo. Times 5 is 75,000 credits, plus 15,000 credits each to build each one. Times 5 is another 75,000 credits, for a total of 150,000 credits just to replicate and build 5 Detonite Injectors. Just 5. And again, this doesn't even get into the cost of the actual resources. So yeah, very expensive very quickly. So I don't actually recommend this method. It's just costs far too much. But thankfully there is a third option, which obviously I do recommend. Save the best for last, right? Underneath your alert tab, under the fist icon, is going to be your invasions. And these are all the current invasions. So I'm going to come at this, well, there are 3 particular reasons why I personally recommend invasions. The first is, if you look at a mission, for example, like Galatea or Galatia, for 3 Fieldrons, you run that mission, you are acquiring more credits as you run that mission, you are picking up more resources, on top of which you're actually gaining Fieldron that you don't have to actually build. So that's the first reason, and then that's versus buying them from the dojo, for example. So this is definitely a good way to go about it when we talk about getting these types of resources. The second reason I recommend this method of the invasions, that is that when you side with a faction that wins the invasion, what this is going to do, for example, if we look at Jupiter here on a Dross day, if the Corpus win, then this is going to actually add to the construction of the Razorback Armada. Likewise, if you side with Grenier and they win a particular invasion, that's going to add to the Baylor Fomorian construction. That's the second reason why I recommend it. And finally, the third reason why I recommend them is because of potential part drops, special part drops from some of the kill bosses that can be sent after you in regards to the invasions. So if you side with the Corpus on several invasions, the Corpus are going to get all butthurt, right? Excuse me. If you side with the Grenier on several invasions, the Corpus are going to get all butthurt, and they're going to send their Zanuka Hunter after you. And the Zanuka Hunter can drop Detron weapon parts. Now, not to be confused with the Maradatron. The Maradatron you can only get from Barrow Katir when he's here, and he happens to bring it with him. This is the regular Detron, and the Zanuka Hunter drops those parts, or can drop those parts, I should say. Finally, if you side with the Corpus on several invasions, the Grenier will get butthurt, and they will send the Grustrog 3 after you. And the Grustrog 3 can drop Brack weapon parts. So, those are the 3 reasons why I personally recommend invasions, because it is ultimately a win-win-win. So, excuse me, as I was saying, in regards to invasions, let me come at this from some of the mistakes and errors that I hear newer players make on some of the invasions. So one thing I hear is newer players say, you know, I click on an invasion box, for example, here on Neptune for the Infested Outbreak, but nothing happens. Why isn't it letting me run the mission? Well, there's 5 different missions going on the Neptune Infested Outbreak. When I click on it, it just takes me to Neptune. The reason for this is because there are multiple missions going on at one time. So what you have to actually do is you have to actually click on the particular mission you're wanting to run. So you'll notice the little fist icon here on Galatia or Galatea, Dysphinia, Sal, Proteus. All of these missions with the fist icons are invasions. In fact, if you hover over them, it'll actually even say invasion on them. So that's what you're going to want to do is find the particular invasion you're looking for, go to the planet, and select it. Another mistake I hear newer players make is they'll say, you know, I ran the mission, but I didn't get my 2 Mutagen Mass, for example, from Triton. Why wasn't it in the mission summary? Well, the reason for this is because invasions work a little bit differently than regular missions, in that when you complete an invasion and the invasion concludes, these are sent to your inbox. And depending on how far into the invasion we are, it could take a day to 2 days to conclude. So, with all of those things said, keep in mind that these are going to appear in your inbox when the invasion concludes, and they're already built, so you don't have to actually build them. Another common mistake I hear newer players make is they'll say, you know, I ran the mission and the invasion concluded, but nothing appeared in my inbox. Well, invasions work on 3 runs. 3 runs, we tend to count 3 runs as a completion of that invasion as far as runs go. So if you wanted to run all 5 of these missions for the Neptune Infested Outbreak, you would have to run each one 3 times. And as you run it, it will actually say you know, 1/3, 2 of 3, 3 of 3 each time you run it. Now keep in mind, these don't stack. So you don't run, for example, Triton 3 times and then turn around and run it another 3 times in hopes of getting 4 mutagen mass. It doesn't work that way. Running it 3 times is going to give you 2 mutagen masses, period, the end. Now you can run it as many times as you want, but it's not going to increase the amount of mutagen mass you get. Your battle pay for running this 3 times is going to be 2 mutagen mass. All right. So, excuse me. When we're talking about missions that have multiple choices, or 2 choices, we'll look at the Jupiter or the Grenier Offensive here with the on Adraste. You've got your choice of a Detonite Injector or Fieldron. You can only pick one. You can't pick both. So pick your most preferred battle pay and go with that one, because you can't run Adraste 3 times for Detonite Injectors and then turn around and run it another 3 times for Fieldrons. It doesn't work that way. You can only run it. You can only get one battle pay from one mission. Well, I should say you can only get one battle pay from a mission that has 2 options. Okay, you can't choose both. With this in mind, if you are running these invasions with friends and you've already ran some, pay attention to what they're queuing up and who they're siding with, because I can tell you, a long time ago, my buddy asked me, hey, do you want to run some invasions? I said, yeah, sure. I didn't think anything about it. Didn't pay any attention. I had ran one mission for, we'll just use Adraste as an example here, for 3 Detonite Injectors. Meanwhile, he had queued it up. I hadn't been paying attention, and I ended up running it with him for 3 Fieldron. What this did is it actually canceled out my 3 Detonite Injector runs. Gone. Poof. Because I'd ran the mission with him on the opposite faction, and it had canceled my runs. So I had to actually turn around and run it an additional 3 times to get my Detonite Injectors back. So pay attention to when you're running these missions with friends, because it can kind of mess you up. So when we're talking about invasions, it's important to keep in mind, and this is why in my other WDIFs I stress how important it is to clear your star chart. And I'm going to say it here again, because invasion is definitely applicable to this. Clearing your star chart is going to benefit you in many ways, but since we're talking about invasions, we're going to focus on that. But clearing your star chart is going to allow you full access to any invasions that happen to pop up. For example, if you have not gotten to Sedna yet, you can't run the Sedna invasion. All right, you're locked out of it because you haven't unlocked Sedna. So therefore, you can't run the Sedna invasion. Likewise, if you are trying to clear planets and you haven't quite got them cleared all the way yet, for example on Mars with War, if you haven't quite gotten to War and there's a lock on it and you can't run that mission regularly, then you can't run it in an invasion. However, if it's unlocked, if you have it unlocked but just you haven't gotten to run it yet, but you can run it regularly, then you still can run it in an invasion. But it can't have a lock on it. It must be unlocked and available for you to run so that you can run the invasion. So I think that just about covers everything concerning Fieldrons, invasions, mutagen masses, and Detonite Injectors, I do believe. So, with all of those things said, let me know down in the comment section below what your favorite method is to acquiring these resources. And until next time, peace and grace.